Avery, whose show is this? And we're live. Welcome everybody here to the Lakers Lounge Podcast. I am Anthony Irwin, joined on this fine Sunday night. It is late. That game took way too fucking long. But I'm joined on this fine Sunday night by Raj Chapalu. This show is brought to you, or this episode is brought to you by the company up there in the top left. I don't think I can say them on audio form, so we'll just kind of use that QR code up there. We are going to be on this one recapping that game and talking about the various aspects of it. There's a lot actually to talk about from that game. LeBron came back from injury. Anthony Davis dominated Memphis's big front court, which is something that it's kind of hit and miss sometimes with him, depending on how big and physical a front court might be. JJ Redick tweaked the starting lineup again tonight and went with Max Christie there. And I thought we got, kind of like the ideal look at what that could offer. So a ton to talk about here, Raj. But first and foremost, I'm gonna get out of the way here and let you plug your latest for Clutch Points.
Oh, yes.
Where you wrote about Bronny and you got to I think you are the only person in the industry who has an exclusive with Bronny James. It's just you.
Right. Yeah, no, that was really cool, to be able to speak to him after a game where he played really well. He had 16 points in a home game and got to talk to him after. And Anthony, I think he's just a really down to earth guy, right? Who's probably in a fishbowl and is just realizing how, big that fishbowl is and how many eyes are on it. And then he obviously went and played a road game and dropped 30, in his first road game in Arizona. Which was cool to watch him play. And I got to talk to him about, how he's doing. And he just said, he's trying to get better every game. And he's really just focused on the basketball. And I think, that's true. And it's tough for him to do that. He was on the Lakers sidelines tonight and then got to kind of go with him on his process and his basketball process. But yeah, you can go read that. It's pinned on my profile there. I appreciate all the support on it and the people that kind of reached out and went and read it and gave me comments on it. But yeah, it's pinned on my profile. Next one I'll be writing about Christian Koloko, so I'll just plug that as well. That should be out, hopefully, tomorrow or the day after. But yeah, that was cool to talk to him. Get a one-on-one with Bronny James.
For the Koloko piece, like, have you spoken to Redick yet? Like, is Redick's quote just like, "Oh, fuck that guy"?
No, not got to speak to JJ Redick. I've been like really impressed with Koloko Anthony, and like not to go too deep on him. And
maybe he was a starting center like a couple years ago.
So and this might be I don't know if it's a strong statement, but he's the best, or if you agree with this or not, but he's the best young defensive center prospect that's been in our system since Zubac. And if you like go back and through those, like all the young centers that we've had, even J Huff. Thomas Bryant, not really a defensive center, right?
No, I know. I'm just like thinking of who you might be thinking of here. Like,
right. Even Castleton couldn't really it wasn't really a defensive.
He's not an athlete.
Yeah, not an athlete or a defensive prospect in that way. J Huff, who has flourished in Memphis, still not really that defensive center. Really, even though he's kind of leading the NBA in blocks off the bench, but at least here he wasn't really a defensive prospect. I think Koloko's a really solid defensive prospect with. I think there's fruit there to get out of that if we develop him correctly. But yeah, I got to talk to him and he gave me some cool answers too. And I'll be writing about that.
Looking forward to it. All right, let's talk about the game tonight. The Lakers beat the Memphis Grizzlies with the final of 116-110. Wasn't really that close. The only time it got close was when Anthony Davis got knocked out of the game. Zach Edey, we'll talk about you in a little bit, but like, Jesus, man. Like, good Lord. Anyway, but the again, 116-110, the Lakers pull off, frankly, like a really important win. When you go up by 20 plus on a team that you wouldn't normally have like chalked up as a win when you're looking at the schedule. Memphis was playing great basketball coming into this one. They were on an absolute tear, especially offensively. And I thought the Lakers made them look really uncomfortable out there defensively. Something that we haven't been able to say, frankly, about this Lakers team. It was funny. I'm sure you were watching from home too, but True asked JJ after the first half. It looks
Yeah.
like you guys are doing a lot less switching out there. Is that something that you guys are doing like on purpose or whatever? Because it's definitely a topic of conversation now, right? It is
Yeah.
jumped the Rubicon into the lexicon of like the casual fan. How
Yeah.
much it's like anytime my dad brings up a talking point, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, this is getting bad. And
Right.
dad's like talking to me the other day about like how much the Lakers are switching, and I'm like, okay, yeah, we probably
That's when you know.
probably time to adjust a little bit. And so yeah, True asked JJ about it, and JJ says, well, Memphis doesn't run as much pick and roll, which means that we don't have as many opportunities to switch.
Yeah.
Hoping that one of the notes that comes out of this game, as the Lakers hopefully do some self scouting here, is, we look a lot better when we aren't giving up all of the switches under the sun.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest, like the biggest development here, and what I wanted to start with, is Max Christie getting into the
Yes.
starting group and
Mhm.
the defense that he played on Ja Morant, who has been special so far this year. Um, I'll just say I'll give my little tidbit of info on this front. Remember, coming into the season, I told you guys this was the starting lineup that I wanted to see. Um, but also importantly, this is the starting lineup that JJ Redick wanted coming into the year or wanted to eventually get to. He gave D'Angelo Russell and Austin Reaves like the first kind of nod at the beginning of the season and then adjusted really quickly. Remember, it was like only 8 games or so before D'Lo went to the bench, and instead of Max starting,
Cam
Cam got
Reddish.
to start
Mhm.
because Max wasn't playing very well. But this
Mhm.
was the starting group that JJ wanted to eventually get to, and this was the one that I kind of wanted to get to too. We finally saw it tonight.
Yeah.
Max Christie was out there for 29 minutes, all of those minutes guarding Ja Morant basically on an island. And he finishes the night, statistically, you're not going to you're not going to write home about it, but was a +7 on the night. And I thought, like, is the story coming out of this game.
100%. This reminded me a lot of the game in Cleveland last year, Anthony, where we had
Mhm.
Max on Donovan Mitchell, and he did a
Yeah.
really nice job of just staying in front, contesting him, and really helping the Lakers get a huge road win. Even that year with Cleveland, who was playing a lot better even this season. But Max looked awesome. It was super athletic, contesting well. I was like, where has this guy been? I understand it probably took some time for him to get adjusted maybe to a new staff or whatever it is, but he looked great. And remember all those wild drives where he would try to dunk everything, and when he had no idea what the result would be. It looks like his drives are a lot more controlled. There's a lot more of a purpose to it. He's kicking out correctly. He's taking the shots at the correct time. Got a couple and ones as well on nice cuts. Had a nice pass from D'Lo. But yeah, the defense was awesome. John, like, this is a really big win. I know it's a little bit tainted because of the way it was going, and the Lakers announcers don't help that by just complaining the whole time about the free throws. And
Dude, it was a shitty game. Like we can say, like, it's a big win. It was all fun and all that stuff. But it took like 2 hours and 40 minutes. That
right,
is way too long for a 48-minute game. Like
my
Stu Lance, I am with you. Stu has to drive back down to San Diego after that.
Okay, maybe if I was in your time zone, or if I had a hour and 40 or 2 hour drive like awaiting me, maybe I would feel worse. But I enjoyed this game. It was physical. It's what I've been asking for, a level of like competitiveness to the whole team, and Max just absolutely showed off with that. And he's a super talented like defensive guy. I think we saw it in stretches last season. And to me, Anthony, this is the guy the Lakers thought they extended. This is the guy they thought they gave 4 years of an extension to, and it's looked like it's starting to pay off a little bit, and it remains to be seen if he stays as a starter, right? I think Dalton's gonna make a case eventually again. He's in a insane slump, which happens to rookies. Usually the rookie wall is like a month later, maybe just Dalton was like came out so hot, he hit the wall quicker. He ran to the
Yeah.
wall a lot faster than other rookies do. So I think he's gonna have a say in kind of how this all ends up eventually. But yeah, Max looks great, and that fit next to Austin was nice. I think you pointed out on Twitter that Austin doesn't have to defend the other team's best perimeter defender. And again, Memphis does run ball screens, but they don't run guard to guard screens as much. They do run like some Jared and Ja stuff, which is a lot more. You can run more drop with that. Ja started to kind of pick on Rui at the end, and poor
Yeah.
Rui, who's just can't move his feet anyway. But Ja Morant trying to pick on you is a different level of pain. But no, this was a just incredible, defensive excellence from Max Christie.
Yeah, I want to spend a little bit more time on this and kind of explain the benefit of it. The biggest benefit, I know that there's been a lot of frustration with Austin specifically this year and how he hasn't been the point guard that the Lakers were kind of or that Lakers fans may have wanted him to be so far this season.
Mm-hmm.
Um I also have felt myself getting a little impatient at times with it. But the thing to keep in mind is what the Lakers are asking Austin to do, or were asking Austin to do when it was D'Lo back there with him, or when it was Dalton back there with him. I would like to go back and look and see what Austin looked like in those games when Cam was in the starting group.
Mm-hmm.
But when it's Austin or when it's Austin and Dalton, or when it's Austin and D'Lo, what the Lakers are essentially asking him to do is, hey, you're going to be our primary initiator, but also go out and defend the other team's best perimeter player. And the number of players who are asked to do that around the NBA is not very high. I don't think, frankly, dude, I'm not kidding. I don't know if anybody else is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Tatum and
Like,
Brown in Boston, but I mean they have
they have so many great defenders there that like it's
Drew
not
and Dwight. Yeah.
that's not apples to apples. Like, I'm not kidding. On a nightly basis, and this isn't me posting bail for Austin. I'm really not. I'm just trying to contextualize what it is the Lakers are asking Austin to do. It's really a throwback role because it's the kind of thing that Kobe used to do, where Kobe would be the engine offensively, and he would have to go out and guard like J.R. Ryder or something on any given night, and he'd have to go out and guard the other team's best perimeter player.
Yeah.
And then eventually, like, if depending on matchups, sometimes it'd be Fisher, sometimes maybe it would be like whoever the small forward was. Eventually, when they got like Ron Artest, it made his life a little bit easier too. But like the idea that Kobe was, the engine on one end, and then also an all NBA defensive presence on the other, like, there are not very many players who are asked to do that as and so like for Austin Reaves, who is not as equipped physically,
Right.
like Kobe was, for Austin to be for the Lakers to be like, hey man, do you mind guarding Ja and also getting our offense started? Do you mind doing
Right.
that? Like, frankly, it would be insane if Austin didn't look like that kind of a role was overwhelming. So you get Max out there tonight, and I thought Austin looked a hell of a lot more comfortable offensively.
Right, and those players that can do that usually are freak athletes in some sense, right? Kobe doesn't really get credit for the athlete he was, but at least when he was doing that, he wasn't doing that on the 09, 10 teams, but on like the 3, 4, teams, that's when he was kind of doing the super scorer that can defend on the other end. But Max, this is kind of the best case, right? I think everyone, like from their heart wanted Max to be good. And I think when you just look at the roster, and it's why I always assumed Cam Reddish would play. But JJ Redick had the quote, Anthony, before the game. I think Jovan's the one that tweeted out where JJ is just describing the player he wants at the off guard spot. And everyone's looking at the roster like, is he in the
there's only
room with
one
us?
guy.
Is that player in the room with us? And so that player is really only Max Christie, right? Unless you include Gabe Vincent in that, like, I guess you can kind of put in, and Gabe is starting to play at least a little bit better, but Max is really the point of attack defender that can also shoot threes, right? Which is the two-way guy. And he also has the athleticism and the size that you would want at the 2 guard position. So Max is like, I never thought there was a good Laker team without Max being somewhat a part of it. I wasn't really sure if he'd be a starter or if
No,
he'd get to
not
be
somewhat, dude. He needed to be a big part of this group.
Right. He needed to be like cemented in the rotation for sure. But
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if that was going to be a starter or not. Like that can be up in the air. But yeah, this is he's been playing well for a while now. Like, it hasn't really shown up in the box score as much, just because the Lakers have been losing. LeBron's been out, Austin's been out, and I think we kind of underrated how much, even just one of those guys being out really dilutes the talent on the team when those guys come out. But no, Max was awesome, and it's big if he's good, because it puts everyone else in. It puts Cam Reddish down a spot, which I think is correct, right? Cam Reddish as your starting guard, just a lot. And he had some shots tonight, which was like the 3-pointer in transition, because he got the deflection, was just perfect.
He took the shot, and you know that every other Laker on the court was staring daggers at him, because the camera panned over to him and he had the biggest shit-eating grin on. It's like, yeah, my bad, everybody. Like,
Right.
I shouldn't have pulled that one. What I was going to say though is, like, on top of slotting guys into kind of the right roles in the rotation, or the right spots in the rotation, it's also important here, because all right, so you start the game with Max out there guarding Ja, and then your next couple subs come in, and the other guy who comes in is Gabe, who is also going to be willing and able to chase around guys on the perimeter, which means that D'Lo can kind of focus on the offensive side of things, and being the initiator out there. And then after Gabe goes out, if your rotation goes deep enough, you bring in Cam, who does some of that stuff too. And then by the time Cam subs out, Max comes back in, and he's good and fresh to go out and focus on Ja Morant specifically. And I just thought, like, defensively, I don't think it's a coincidence at all that Max gets out there in the starting group, and the Lakers immediately have their best defensive game of the season. I'm not saying that Max is like the reason that the Lakers were looked as good as they did defensively. I thought he was a big part of it, because I thought he was excellent tonight. But I think the biggest thing is, like you're talking about, the trickle down effect that it has on the rest of the rotation, and the fact that at any given moment there aren't any stretches where the Lakers have, like, zero perimeter defense out there to speak of. There's always going to be at least one perimeter guy out there who is, like, capable of defending at an NBA level.
Right. And so they panned Anthony, and again, it's not his fault. It's just every time they pan to the bench, and it's Vanderbilt there, and a very nice, shirt and designer, or whatever it was. But like, Max, I guess, is the closest you can kind of try to replicate to that, right? And there's a bunch of plays where defensively, I know the Lakers switch, a lot of times when they don't need to, but when they're playing like drop coverages and stuff like that, you want to keep basketball to a 2-on-2 situation. And like, Max and AD is a really fun, just defensive combo, because it's it's a lot of arms, it's a lot of athleticism. They can get deflections, and they can both be super physical, right? They can absorb contact. If you watch these games, Ja Morant had a game in Boston recently where just no one could do anything with him, because just in and out dribble, spin. And Max, I don't know if this was on purpose or not, Anthony, but he guessed right on every spin. I've never seen that against Ja Morant. Just every spin he guessed right, and like, you could see Ja at the end going like, how is he still there contesting me? That was just super impressive. Obviously, you're not gonna lock Ja up every single time, and I think he still got to whatever point total he got to. But Max was great, and that defense is in there with him. So now that I've seen it, like, I want to see that consistently. Like, even with your shots not going down, even if you're not involved. Tonight felt a lot like when you have a substitute teacher and then the real teacher comes back. Like, it felt a lot like that too, where LeBron returns and everyone's like, oh, we gotta play.
Not just did
defense.
LeBron the turn, but he came back and, like, gave a shit.
Had a
like,
nice
he had
dunk.
that one stretch in the first quarter, right, where he had the dunk, then the chase down block, and then the tip on the fast break on a missed layup too. And, like, I think that's when everybody was like, oh, we're doing that tonight. Like, we get to, all right, let's it. And we'll come back to that point, because I think that's one of the things that drives me the most insane covering this team for as long as I have, is that, like, it shouldn't take your 40-year-old to tell you, like, all right, guys, we aren't fucking around tonight. But the part of like that first quarter, and like when the Lakers really built out their lead, that I hope they really take note of in video, is how often they were getting out and running. And
Mhm.
even if they aren't scoring in transition, because I'd have to look to see how many points they actually had in transition tonight. Even if you aren't even scoring in transition, the idea of being in a rhythm offensively where you're getting into your set and there isn't like you aren't starting your set with 14 seconds left on the clock, right? You're getting down there and when the ball is crossing half court, it's crossing half court within 4 seconds or so, which gives you those extra few seconds to make the defense work that much longer if you do need to use all of those seconds. So it's just like I've kind of felt like when the Lakers, because recently they before tonight in four of the last 5 games they hadn't broken 100 points or something like that.
Mhm.
And like I think a big part of that is just playing so slow and
Yeah.
you aren't getting stops, or if you are getting stops, you're just walking the ball down the court. The Lakers needed to find some energy within the basketball here tonight, and I thought they really did. And I think again, it's that adding some collective athleticism out there, and in Max, who just wants to get out there and run, and Rui wants to get out there and run, and then if like LeBron sees, okay, there are people running with me, all right, I'll get out and run too. And then it doesn't stick out so bad when Edey is kind of trailing on both ends, when he's running one way or the other. So I thought like getting out and running tonight was a big part of
Yeah.
how good they looked.
Right. And my last thing on Max, I think it's, a good sign because I think last year Max was the, can do no wrong player,
Yeah.
right? He's the just, oh, everything that's wrong with the team is because Max Christie isn't playing. You can point to whatever metric you want to point to because his volume was so low, right? The minutes was so low that you can just point to any metric that you want 40 plus catch and shoot, 3-point shooter in the corners, whatever you want to use. But this year he started off slow and there's some people turn and, we're like, hey, maybe this is just not an NBA player. Darvin Ham was right. Stuff like that was starting to really
Yeah.
pop out in the conversation. So it's cool to see him kind of be resilient and work through that. And there was just too much evidence a year ago, I think, to think that he wasn't going to figure out in some way and in some capacity. But it's good to see him, I guess. Re-earn like a starting spot from being he was out of the rotation. Anthony, remember, we were doing
Yeah.
games where he was playing garbage time next to Maxwell Lewis and Jalen Shafino, and like it was Max Christie right there. And we're like, man, that's a huge drop off from what the Lakers expected. So it's nice to see him back with the starters and gaining cohesion with a group that I think he just fits. His skill set is like exactly what that group is begging for. So if he can be just consistent in that, then he's gonna have a huge rotation on his team.
Um, yeah, I picture like as you were talking about like Max playing garbage time with Jalen Hood-Schifino, it kind of reminds me of like that pit from Dark Knight Rises, which you probably never saw, but like
Mm-mm.
Jalen's like helping Max climb out of that pit, and now Max is finally playing. And JHS is like, I told you, boy, I told you. Oh man. Uh
I gotta see the movie because that's not the picture that I'm probably picturing like a way wrong picture about
um
it.
Yeah, I think another part of this too is that like it gives you Max playing as well as he did tonight gives you an option because D'Lo didn't have it, and if
No,
D'Lo doesn't have it and Max isn't playing well, your option is like Gabe, and that's it. And if Gabe
yeah,
didn't have it, and he kind of sort of didn't, he had that banked in three, and the rest of his threes that were taken were just like whoa. It looked like he shot another one after he banked in the one previously, and Stu asked, "Did he try to bank in another
So,
one?"
let me ask you: Do you like when a player like plays it off cool? Because they panned the game after he banked it, and he just went back like he meant to do that. Like he just
Yeah.
banked it in. He's like,
No, yeah,
I got,
you gotta be
yeah,
like,
yeah. There's got to be some
you
reaction
gotta
there to it,
acknowledge it or something in some way. No, when they if you don't play it off,
right?
you're actually thankful for the 3 points, and that's a giant red flag. That's a
Like hit.
huge red flag.
He's like I hit my average. Like that's we're
We're good here. We're good. I'm good. Oh man. Let's talk about LeBron. who came back. This is the way that LeBron looked in the first quarter, and I thought he kind of declined a little bit as the game went along too. But
Mhm.
the way that he looked in that first quarter is exactly why I was begging him to take a little break, right? And why JJ Redick was even out there on the record speaking to media people, be like, "Yeah, I know about that. I don't know about the 82 game thing, Bronny, Bron." And the way that he looked tonight, like, I'm not saying they need that from him every night, but they need him to, like, when he goes to flip that switch, you need to see a noticeable difference because before he took this break, there was, he would go to flip that switch and it was just like, oh, he's shooting pull-up jumpers and still. He wasn't
Yeah.
actually able to flip that switch. Tonight he does go out there and he does look the way he did in the first quarter. And I kind of wonder if he'll start trying to flip that switch a little earlier in the game to get other people going and hope that they can kind of carry that through so he can coast through the second and third quarters. And then in the fourth, if he has to flip it again, go to it again. But I, I, I don't think he can ease his way into games anymore.
Yeah, that's the tough part. And also when he decides to flip that switch, Anthony, and the light goes on, you need to win that game. So like the last time he flipped that was in Atlanta. I think that was the last time he played, if I have that correct. He did flip the switch. LeBron's light went on, and he was able to put the foot on the gas, and the Lakers lost. This was kind of the perfect game because the Lakers were pretty much up 15-20 the entire night. So he really was able to pick his spots even more than he would in a regular game, right? I think he lets the game and the lead kind of dictate how hard he pushes. And I think that's just something the Lakers have to deal with for the rest of the season. I just think expecting 40-year-old LeBron to continue to be your engine on either end of the floor, I think that's just unrealistic for full games. And you need performances like tonight from Edey, who dropped 40, his second 40-point game of the season. And then you had, a nice mix of Austin and I think a couple other players that got to 8 to 10 points. But yeah, I think LeBron's going to continue to try to work himself into games and take breaks where he can. And the defense is still, the defensive effort still going to be up and down. It was funny because Stu Lance kept pointing out that they were doing replays and Stu's like, yeah, man, you got to box out Zach Edey. And every single pan, it's just LeBron watching Zach Edey. Like Edey goes to contest a shot, and it's just LeBron's like, yeah, I'm not, like, we're up 18. I'm not boxing out Zach
Yeah.
Edey. He can get this offensive rebound. Obviously in this game, it's fine. It's just, if the Lakers can kind of handle
Honestly,
that.
given like the way that Edey like can't control his elbows, I don't blame anybody for not wanting to box out Edey.
Do you think he
Like that
feels it?
guy,
Does
like
he
I want
not
to
feel
know,
it?
like when he wakes up in the morning, like or when he was a kid, like and his like mom would wake him up in the morning, like, "Hey Zach, it's time to wake up." Boom. Like I just I need to know how spastic this guy is because like normally, Raj, if you hit somebody in the face, you feel it. And
Right.
there's a reaction to hitting people in the face.
Little remorse. Yeah.
He's like like no reaction whatsoever to hitting Austin in the face twice.
Yeah.
The 80 thing was like a freak thing. Like he didn't even make contact with 80's shoulder. 80, I guess, after the game said it was a stinger, and JJ said that 80 told him it was a stinger thing. So I'm not really gonna hold that against Edey. But
Yeah.
like the number of times that he was just like in there and his elbows were like, leaning like a cholo, like elbows outside to side. Like, what are you doing, dude? Like, chill.
He hit 80 shoulder by osmosis. It's just, he just
This is the craziest thing. See the 7'3" guy with his elbows out, crossing the entirety of the paint. And he's like knocking dudes out, and there's no reaction to it. He's like, oh, I got the ball. Crazy. Absolutely insane. Might be a psychopath. Let's talk about Anthony Davis, though, who played one of his better games of the season.
yeah.
Finishes tonight 15 of 22, from the field. Only 33 minutes, in part because Zach Edey tried to kill him by osmosis. 40 points, 16 boards, couple assists, couple steals, a block. Was a game high plus 14 in this one. The Lakers were two different teams. They were the team that you saw when he was out there, and they were the team that you saw when he wasn't. I thought he was incredible from start to finish in this one. And yeah, I don't know how many different ways to say like, holy shit, that was a great AD game.
Something about Memphis, it just brings the best. I don't know if they say something pregame. I don't know if there's just a internal rivalry that's continued that isn't really as public anymore after their matchup in the playoffs. But AD was awesome. He takes weird satisfaction in just destroying Jaren Jackson Jr. every time they play. And Jaren Jackson Jr. can't guard him, and Zach Edey is just still a rookie and who's just massive. But just doesn't have the defensive movement or IQ yet to guard him. And AD was awesome. And I think this all continues to stem from him hitting jump shots. Like, I didn't want to like pull with that, but it just feels like that's what got him going. He hit his first, I think, 3 jumpers, Anthony, and they were both ones that Memphis kind of would concede, right? They were jab step jump shots, and they both switched through. And then I think he got a 3 in there as well. And I thought that opened everything up. Memphis had to play him a little tighter, and that window got him drives, got him and ones. The Lakers found him down low for dunks, and he was finishing in transition. He had some cuts as well to the basket, and I thought defensively he was masterful. Just they couldn't do anything. And Memphis is a top 4 offense coming in. This is not, the Wizards or whatever other.
Especially recently.
Yeah, they've been playing awesome, and they're healthy. Like they're fully healthy, other than J Huff, who got out, I think, early in this game, but their whole roster's there. I don't know what happened to Marcus Smart. Looks like just he left Boston and left himself in Boston. But no, AD was awesome. Shutting down any jaw drive while helping at the basket. Desmond Bane, another guy that I'm not sure what happened to his offensive game, but couldn't get anything at the rim. And the Lakers, I think, had their best defensive half of the season when you put in the team that they were playing. And AD was this was an MVP type night. Like, this was the reason why he was in MVP conversations, because he was averaging 30 while doing the defensive stuff. This was another game to that. I would put this maybe at the top. I gotta go back and look, but I think this is right there for his best games of the season.
So the Grizzlies had won like 9 of their last 10. Okay.
Yeah.
Here are their offensive totals during that stretch. Scored 117 against Philly, 142 against Chicago, 123 against Portland, 131 against Detroit, 120 against New Orleans, 136 against Indiana, 116 in their one loss. That was to Dallas, 115 to Sacramento, 127 against Boston in Boston, 140 against Washington, 135 against Brooklyn, and then tonight they scored 110. And a lot of those 110 were kind of like garbage points at the end of the night. The Lakers really gave them problems defensively, and to the points that you were making earlier over the course of the year, right? That like the Lakers are not the 28th worst defense in the NBA. They
shouldn't be.
They do not have the personnel. They have the personnel to be a lot better than that. I think a lot of that was fit stuff. I think there was I think Memphis, we mentioned like the lack of the pick and roll and a little bit less switching then. There are some other factors that may have been going on here, but like I really think like on a macro level, the defense that the Lakers played here tonight is the biggest macro level story to come out of this, right? Micro meaning individual players, macro meaning like potential season altering storylines here. The way that they defended tonight was a big step in the right direction.
And I'm so excited because the Lakers don't play till Thursday, so I have a lot of time to go back and rewatch. But I encourage people the amount of times that they were able to hold their man in front of them, Anthony, tonight was more than I think they've done all season. Shutting off lanes, not letting guys drive by, and there's a level of just accountability and just personal. I mean, I don't want to use pride because as a tough way to put it, but like just some defensive pride. I feel like,
It
on
is
that
pride.
end. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like some defensive pride on that end. Yeah, I thought they really went away from that. They were playing like their defense got a little bit better. I mean, they were playing, but they played a okay defensive game in Minnesota. I just think they didn't have the offense to match. They had a nice defensive game, I thought, against Anthony Edwards. But tonight, like throughout the whole roster, whoever checked in, I thought really stepped up and defended their guy. And that helps, when Max is good, and obviously you have Cam and Gabe, who I thought had really good defensive impacts. Memphis, again, they don't allow for a lot of switching because they do attack a lot off of one-on-one action. But they have guys who drive really well, who that's what they do. Scottie Pippen Jr., he gets downhill. Ja Morant gets downhill. And those are guys that you're able to shut off. So yeah, I think there's better defensive talent than we've shown. We're just 28th in defense when you have a guy that both of us believe should be in the defensive player of the year conversation. Like that should put you at a bar a lot higher than, sitting with the Washington Wizards and the other tanking teams at the bottom of the standings.
Well, think about it another way. I think Jaren is a good matchup for Rui in the same way that like Cat is a good matchup for Rui. And then, you have like Austin is a very different defender when his focus is Bane and not Ja,
Yeah.
and obviously Max is very different on Ja than, Austin would be. And like, this is the thing about basketball. It's like my favorite aspect about basketball is like the jazz nature of it, right? Where if you go and watch a jazz band and the pianist has like a bad night, you feel it. It has a complete impact on the rest of everything that you're watching there. Or if you think of basketball or lineups in basketball, like making a dish and, like the sauce that you put on your steak trickles into like the mashed potatoes, and like that bad sauce like impacts other parts of the plate. Like this is just how these things go. And tonight we watched a very, very different Lakers team defensively because things were slotted where they needed to be slotted, and now look, do I think Max is going to play that kind of defense every single night? No,
Sure.
but that something close to it. If he wants to keep starting, that's the role that he has to play in that starting lineup. And we'll see, like, as teams maybe start to play off him a little bit more to kind of punish the Lakers for playing him and starting him and getting the benefit that they do from starting him defensively. We'll see what like the counter punch is from the league now that they've seen this look here. But like I thought Rui was a lot more focused defensively tonight. And I just, that pride that you mentioned there, it like this is people, for some reason people really didn't like this point when I made it, but like LeBron and AD, and LeBron specifically tonight, set a very different tone than he had the last like 5 or 6 times when we've seen him. And again, I think it's not great that your 40-year-old is setting your tone for the type of defense and the type of energy that you have out there on the court. I don't think that's good. I think the Lakers need to find a way to hold themselves accountable beyond, is LeBron trying? But still, like tonight, the way that the Lakers played defensively, I don't think, if you would have asked me coming into this game, hey, the type of effort that it's going to take to make Memphis look as uncomfortable as they looked tonight, is this team capable of that? Like capable, like best case scenario, can they do that? I don't think I would have said they could have. And now they've shown that they can throw that pitch. And now it's just a matter of like, how can you get back to the point where you could throw that pitch more consistently?
Right. And I think, again, I've made this point, but, if we were bottom dwellers on defense and we're playing a bunch of guys solely for the purpose of defense, Gabe Vincent, Cam Reddish, Max Christie, these are all guys only getting minutes because of their like defensive impact to start, at least with their offenses, the way their offense was struggling. So I always thought there was a huge kind of bridge to cross in terms of where we were on the defensive end and what we can get to. Obviously Anthony Davis plays a big part of that, Rui being more locked in on defensive end. This is stuff like that. I hope that, they show Rui and like, hey, we don't need you to drop 20 or 18. You do these things. That he had a play tonight where he was the low man and like knocked away a lob, and I like went, yeah, that's what I'm looking for. Really, like the other stuff will come. He didn't take a single
I
mid
like that
range.
he almost fouled out.
Yeah,
I like it.
Yeah, move your feet, be physical, use the frame that you have. Anthony, he didn't take one mid-range fading turnaround jumper tonight, and I was totally fine with it. Totally fine.
Yeah.
Like he contributed on the defensive end. He tried to box out Zach Edey as well as he could, as well as anyone could. That's the stuff. And I think even Cam got a bunch of deflections tonight. Like again, when he's not starting, you can kind of use him more as a tool instead of having to be a huge part of your rotation. And I think it also, like, Max and Dalton both being good, Anthony, it just gives you options, right? Dalton doesn't have to have 20 a night for the Lakers to win. He can be a shooter that you bring off the bench that teams have to guard and play defense against. I think Max starting, and it just puts everyone in the right role. But yeah, this defense has to continue. They play Sacramento twice next, who's won 3 in a row. Is a tough offensive team every time, and they're just rowdy, when the Lakers play there. So Max is going to guard De'Aaron Fox. Like, that does not get easier.
No,
so
twice.
yeah.
Back to back.
So right.
All right, let's get out of here because we have it's late. I'm tired. And we have a starred comment here, which means we get to play this bad boy. I get boards for days asks, what are you hearing on the latest Washington trade talks about Jonas and regarding the recent buzz about Brogdon being in the deal? Keep up the work. So I wrote about this for Clutch Points, and the anticipation around the league and according to the people that I was talking to was that Rob and Washington would get on a call today. I'm sure they spoke today to see what could be figured out. I do think that Washington's asking price on Jonas is higher, obviously, than the Lakers would like to pay. Otherwise, the deal would be done. It's going to be interesting to see how they handle this because there are some whispers out there that Hayes might be coming back relatively soon. And if Hayes is able to come back, like, do the Lakers kind of convince themselves that they could wait out Washington and wait for that price to drop a little bit more? But also at the same time, right? Like, AD goes down. They were up 23. He goes down, and immediately that lead shrinks to 9, but before the end of the third quarter. So, like, I don't know how much room the Lakers have to mess around and wait on this front. The Brogdon thing, I'm going to be honest. I hadn't heard a whole ton about Brogdon. I know that the Lakers have liked him for a while. They're terrified of his injury history from what from what I've been able to kind of gather. I think Brogdon, if Brogdon is in any kind of a deal, it's D'Angelo Russell insurance. So the only way that you're acquiring Malcolm Brogdon is if D'Lo is going out. But at that point, I feel like it's relatively negligible, and Brogdon is a lot less healthy than D'Lo is normally. So I don't personally, I think that would be kind of a waste of the resources. It would be a lateral move when you only have like 1 or 2 moves with the resources that the Lakers have at their disposal. So I think right now their focus is on JV, and we'll see how those talks go over the next like week or so.
Yeah, I feel like, Brogdon would have been moved by now if he had a market at all. It's just his injury history. I'm not saying this just because I'm writing about him. I would like us to still develop Koloko, even if JV comes back. I just think there's fruit there to get in terms of a young center. But yeah, it feels like Jonas and the Lakers are linked, and something will happen this season. I'm just wondering, and like, what's the rush for Washington, I guess, to do this, or any of these teams to do this now instead of Washington? Obviously, their season's done, right? Their record is what it is. What, I guess, is the rush for them to do this now instead of waiting for what Jonas's market could be in February? What would be the rush for them?
The thought that perhaps like you're not going to do better than what the Lakers might offer now anyway. Like, is holding on to like you're never going to get a first round pick for Jonas Valanciunas. That's
Sure.
just not going to happen. Maybe Washington holds on and they hope to get D'Lo in that deal instead of like Gabe.
Ooh, which would,
You know, which look, I asked about that specifically because I started to hear some of that stuff, or I started to see it. I know Brett Siegel, our colleague there at Clutch Points,
mhm.
reported that he's hearing that the Lakers were trying to expand a deal and include D'Lo and get Brogdon back or whatever. I had asked about the Laker. Like I had asked, this was like a case where I spoke to my sources and I asked them directly, hey, you wouldn't use D'Lo in a Valanciunas trade, right? Like that wouldn't be the key piece that you would be getting with D'Lo's expiring. And I was told pretty flatly no. So,
Yeah.
like it maybe it's different when you're expanding it and Brogdon becomes like the D'Lo insurance or replacement or whatever. So you essentially turn D'Lo and a player you're not using as much into Jonas and Brogdon instead. And I kind of sort of get it there, but Brogdon also isn't the kind of point guard that the Lakers are kind of looking for. If they do go out and get a point guard, it would be somebody a little bit more athletic, somebody better defensively. But like the problem
Right.
with going out and getting a point guard is that the Lakers see Austin as their point guard. So like that
Sure.
complicates all of that anyway.
Right. I guess my only thing with the Jonas thing is he signed for 2 more seasons, right? It's not like they're in they have like if he's on their team or they'll lose him for nothing in free agency. They just signed him. And the Washington Wizards, Anthony, are 3-21. He's not helping them win
Yeah.
very much. That's why I was a little surprised at the Schroeder deal with the Warriors, but I guess Schroeder is just too good right now, and so they need to get off him. And I'm surprised at the cost that they got off him because he's actually playing really well. So 2 second-round picks for Dennis, but yeah, it's interesting. I wonder what goes into the thought process with teams because obviously they're looking like they're gonna move Jonas. It's just I'm wondering
Well,
what the
like
rush
if
is.
Jonas gets hurt,
Uh-huh.
now you don't get those picks, right?
Yeah.
And if he gets hurt this year, his return next year diminishes. And his return the following year diminishes. Because
Sure.
then he's just an expiring contract that a team might want to get off of some money.
Yeah.
Whereas now, if you think you can get like multiple second rounders at this point, like seeing is like Schroeder went for a net 2 second
Mhm.
rounders, I would probably say Washington is expecting that kind of a net haul where they would want 2 second rounders for Valanciunas. The Lakers
Mhm.
at this point, seeing as Schroeder, the much better player, went for net 2 second rounders, the Lakers might be essentially telling them like, we'll give you 1. And that's why, the talks are not going anywhere right now. So, yeah, I still think like, look, the Lakers have played how many games at this point? Have they? The Lakers just played their 26th game.
Mm.
So, um, Rob told us coming into the season that he didn't want to make any major changes to the roster until they'd gotten 30 games in under their belt. And
Mhm.
I would imagine he would have wanted to see 30 games of an intact rotation before he made any such decision. So who knows if he's like waiting another 30 after JV gets back in January. He can't. Like that would be post deadline. You can't do that. But like if if like with a win like tonight, it's one of those like it's I guess bittersweet is the term for it, where you would say like, yeah, I'm glad that they won, but this just gives them a little bit more time to be like, see, look what this roster could be if we don't expend stuff on it. So like look, this front office, like what we've learned, and I've written about this, I've reported this in the past. This front office is very cognizant of the fact that if they pull the trigger on a trade and it doesn't work out, they could be one bad trade away from cleaning house, right? And I think that has seriously impacted everybody's willingness and interest in making a trade. And there's a lot of paralysis by analysis here. So if this front office ever feels that it can use an excuse to not do anything, because you don't get fired for the moves that you don't make, you get fired from for the ones that you do. And if this front office thinks that like they can find yet another excuse not to do anything, they're going to keep using those excuses, and I think it's wrong. It's not an approach that I respect particularly much, especially seeing as you have the gig that you do because of Mamba mentality's willingness to pull the trigger, and that being a core value of the, that competition is a core value of the Lakers organization. But this is the reality here. So like, from the Lakers standpoint, all they can keep doing is racking up wins like this and look as impressive as they can, so that notion of getting over the hump isn't as big a lift as it would be otherwise.
Right. And I guess the only thing I would put is this would be the earliest the Lakers have ever made a trade, right? The earliest one they've had before was the Rui trade, which I think was late January. And that was also closer to the deadline as well. And I think this front office has shown that they're going to just continue to, look at all the options until there's no more time to look at any more options. That just feels like what it's been. And look, I mean, I know you've said that, playing well kind of would institute some sense of urgency. I feel like not playing well should have instituted similar senses of urgency, right? This team was 2-10 and they still stood pat, and it worked out because they were able to, get the deal from Utah for Russell Westbrook. But that's why I'm interested. I know there's a lot of noise and from you and from the reporting and in terms of what if we're gonna go get Jonas. I've seen the history, and they're like 2 second rounders, no 1 second rounder, and then it's all right. Well, we'll talk to you in February then, because
or some team comes along and offers 2 second round. There's a whole bunch of teams out there that are like thin up front, and this is a league that everybody is trying to match up with Jokic, and Shaq employed an entire armada of stiff 7-footers who would just be 6 fouls against him, and every team is looking to bolster their front court. And I know, by the way, like I share a lot of concerns with Jonas that a lot of other people doing this have with Jonas. Like he's not a perfect player. I don't know how many of the things that he solves here with the Lakers. And for the things that he solves, he creates other issues elsewhere. Totally get it. However, I don't love the fact that JJ clearly doesn't trust Christian Koloko. He was asked point blank about playing Koloko and Edey side by side. He was like, no, no, I'm not going to do it.
I disagree with that, by the way. I think they can work.
His response to playing Christian Koloko and Anthony Davis side by side was the exact same response Miles gives me when I hand him a green pea. Like, he's just like, no, absolute. What a vegetable? This is not a carb. And like, the fact that we're there and the front office hears that, right? Now, I think JJ would trust JJ playing next to Anthony Davis a little bit more. I don't understand the lack of trust that he has in Koloko there. But it's a reality. And until either he gets over that lack of trust, or until the Lakers make an acquisition here, they're going to feel thin up front in perpetuity.
Right. And my last thing on Giannis is I'm one of those people that's just not just a big fan of his game, I guess, and just what the fit would be. But I think I've kind of come around on he's a regular season like floor raiser in terms of what he gives AD, and doesn't have to have all the bruising battles. And I remember against Minnesota, it was AD trying to box out, Naz Reid, Julius Randle, and Gobert at the same time. Gives you a guy to throw out there to just add some toughness on the boards. So it makes sense if the cost is a few second rounders and, whatever minimum, or if it's Gabe Vincent or something like that. I think that's the package that it will eventually be. But, Washington can also look at the Lakers and go, we see your backup center depth, like we see that they're sharing minutes in the G League. Like, you need Jonas Valanciunas. So it's gonna be interesting to see how the negotiations play out.
All right. I think that is going to do it here for this episode of the Lakers Lounge podcast. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. A quick reminder, please do hit that subscribe button. Please do hit that like button. And please do tell your friends about the subscribe and like buttons here on this show. The plan as of now is to go ahead and handle the mailbag for tomorrow's episode. And then the Lakers, I believe, play again, right? No, they don't play
on Thursday.
They don't play till Thursday?
Yeah.
Wow, another nice long break. So I guess we'll talk about LeBron James trade rumors then for the next 3 days again. So we'll figure out what we're gonna do here. We do have a fun guest actually lined up now that I think about it for Tuesday. Jovan is supposed to stop by. We'll probably do like a home and home with him and me on our respective shows to get us through this break, and then I'll see what I could do about getting a guest for Wednesday, and then we'll be right back at it again on Thursday. So until then, and until the next time you guys hear from us, I'm Anthony Irwin. That was Raj Chapalu. This has been the Lakers Lounge. Have a great rest of your day. Make somebody else's. And I'll talk to you tomorrow. Here is Avery.
Bye, everyone.